So I finally beat Shadow of the Erdtree, and I have a lot to say. And me and my community decided it would probably be the best to start with a boss ranking, which is a good idea by me. Shadow of the Erdtree was my favorite first playthrough experience I ever had in a game, and it was just absolutely amazing. A lot of great fights, great moments, and great things to discover in this incredible DLC. And the bosses are no exception. Unfortunately, by the end of the playthrough, my PS5 started going a bit crazy and I also got a bit sick, so that's kind of unfortunate, but we're still doing this ranking now. Another very important thing, of course, there will be spoilers in this video. I will be talking about every boss, including the final one, so please be warned and don't let this masterpiece be spoiled for you. If you enjoy this kind of content, this ranking and everything Shadow of the Erdtree related, be sure to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it a lot, and there will be a lot more content coming in the future. With everything out of the way, let's get into the video. Before I even get into the boss ranking, I just really need to emphasize again, this is just my first impression after my first playthrough of this DLC. So a lot of these placements and opinions will probably shift in the future. And at the last place here, surprisingly maybe for some, is Metyr, Mother of Fingers. And in my opinion, she really shouldn't be here. I love cosmic horror, I love Bloodborne, and I think this boss has an insanely awesome design. The arena looks stellar, the presentation is fantastic, and one of the coolest, impactful moments on the first run for me at least. I also really enjoyed the quest with the Emir talks and the entire finger runes. It was just really cool and a great build up. So why does this very cool boss fail? Honestly, besides some minor issues, it really only comes down to one thing, and it's the fucking ultimate attack. This laser spinning move where she activates and has like one or two smaller follow-ups is utter garbage. The first laser is literally undodgeable. I think there is an inconsistent way of avoiding this attack by starting the second you see a really weird animation, but even that is inconsistent, and the only way there is with this Ash of War. Even Ongbal had to use this way, and he never uses stuff like that to avoid moves. So it's just a really trash move. But besides that, the fight is great. I don't like the summoning personally, but it's not really that big of an issue in the fight. And also this AoE at the start of phase 2, it's not my favorite because it's very tight, but it's dodgeable, so it's honestly just a skill issue right now. All the other moves are also quite fun. The scrolling move I used to really hate, but it's really just a punishment for being at her side, and it's definitely avoidable. Had some fights where she didn't do it at all. So all in all, Metyr is a boss that can definitely move into the great tier, but that one move is so bad and probably one of the worst Fromsoftware moves ever created, and I really hope they fix it in the future because it's just a stinky, shitty move right now. Commander Gaius is a really fun field boss and a great sentinel variant, maybe even possibly the best. And yeah, he's just a great boss. Wait, this guy is a remembrance boss? What? This guy doesn't even have a unique soundtrack and no presentation. Honestly, that's also my biggest issue with the boss. I think Gaius is a remembrance fraud and he shouldn't be a remembrance boss. When I saw the trailer, I thought he would be a field boss similar to like the 3 sentinels in the game besides Loretta, and you would fight him somewhere outside, maybe gatekeeping like a legacy dungeon or something. But this guy is a freaking remembrance boss for some reason, and I don't know, this really feels like Fromsoftware was just trying to go over the 10 remembrance bosses. Just give Bale the remembrance instead. Like, I don't understand what they did here. But yeah, besides that, the charge kind of sucks, but I used the hard deflect here to deal with it, so it was alright at the end of the day. And besides those minor issues, I would say this boss is overall like really fun. Possibly maybe even most fun 3 sentinel variant. That's to be seen in the future. I really enjoy his massive boar combo and how it emphasizes directional rolling. Overall just a good boss, but because he's remembrance, he will never make it past the B tier, possibly even dropping down further in the future. The Putrescent Knight is a boss where I first wasn't sure why he's a remembrance boss. He just didn't seem that major, but to be honest, the more I thought about him, the more he seemed to me like an Estelle or Regal Ancestor Spirit like boss, where he's not like this big major character, but just like a fun boss you encounter somewhere on the map. And yeah, this boss is nice. He has a great and ominous atmosphere, and it's just really unique. The way he fights is super cool. He has a great use of delayed attacks, they were fun to figure out, and I love this horse combo so much. It's it's such a fun move to dodge. The flame attack he adds in phase 2 is another really fun one, and I love that it emphasizes jumping. This guy is the Knight of Santrina, but apparently in the game files he was the Knight of the Glowmite Queen, which, yeah, the Glowmite Queen, big L for Fromsoft for not including her in any way, and I'm very sad because we probably will never get any new information on her, which is just a big missed opportunity because she was such a cool and interesting character. But back to Putrescent, he's just a really fun fight. I don't really have too much to say about him, besides he's just a really fun fight, and I think he barely deserves the A tier. He's just very cool. I love his design, and I just really enjoyed finding him in this grave site. It was just a very cool moment. Also, the drop reminded me of how you enter the Demon Prince fight, which was really cool. I really don't want to sound too negative, and I even placed this boss into the A tier because I really enjoyed it. But I think Romina might be my personal most disappointing boss in the Elden Ring DLC. Because when it comes to it, she's basically the penultimate boss before finishing this DLC, because you burn the tree afterwards, and she really doesn't have that much going on for her presentation wise. She has an insanely sick design, an incredible soundtrack that was used in the story trailer and left me in absolute awe, and she's just a very cool boss. She has parts of Malenia's leitmotif in her second phase soundtrack. The way she attacks, her attacks look flashy, it looks so fun, and it is also fun, but I feel like she deserved at least like a cutscene where she crawls into the arena or something. I don't know, I think her presentation is a bit lacking. Besides that, while mechanically really fun for me and it was really enjoyable, she wasn't that hard, not comparable difficulty wise to other bosses, and a lot of her attacks were missing, I found, which was a bit weird to say the least. But even with these minor flaws, I still think Romina is a great boss, and I think I will like her a lot more over the time. But first impression wise, she was great, but she could have been so much more. Like, I'm sure this boss definitely has the potential of being like an S tier fight. It's kind of a shame, but well, what can you do? In contrast to Romina, the Erdtree avatar left me in absolute disbelief when I first faced it. This boss is so freaking cool. I love that you're at the base of the Erdtree and encounter this very weird boss. This was such a fun encounter and experience. I loved it so much. His design with the sunflower head is super amazing and memorable. I absolutely adore the arena. I love all of his attacks. They all look very cool, very flashy, very cinematic, especially the nuke in phase 3. It's just so cool. And yeah, I said phase 3. And this is also my favorite aspect in the entire fight. This guy dies very quickly, like he's super squishy, which is interesting because most of the DLC bosses have been quite tanky, if I say so. But then this boss just reappears again and regenerates, and you have to kill him again, and then he reappears again, and you have to kill him again, and then he stays dead. So basically you have to kill this boss 3 times. This reminded me of the amazing boss in Stellar Blade called Belial. He had this amazing gimmick as well, and I think it's such a cool idea. Sure, at the end of the day, it's just basically distributing his health across 3 phases, 3 health bars, but it's just very cool gameplay wise. It's just fun. And I of course need to mention the soundtrack again. I feel like this soundtrack is super special. It's super long, and I think it tells a story. Some people have theorized it tells the story of the Lands of Shadow, which is so cool. Yeah, besides that, this boss, for some it might not seem as something too special and pretty simplistic, but for me this was just a super cool encounter, and I will always remember it fondly for that. Well, here we are, the Divine Beast, the Dancing Lion. The boss that was used in pretty much all of the promotion material Fromsoftware gave us, and was probably one of the most hyped up bosses besides obviously Mesmer. And what can I say? This boss is really great, but am I confident that this boss actually belongs into the S tier, into the amazing tier yet? Not really. First impression wise, yes. The cutscene was very interesting, the lore implications for this beast are super cool too, the design is fantastic and one of my favorite Fromsoftware designs, and in Elden Ring as well. It's so good. good, and the fight is just really fun. The OST is also just god tier, one of my favorites in Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree in specific. It's so good. But I feel like this fight might have some issues. I think there are definitely camera issues in this fight, not as egregious as some people might claim, but definitely not the best camera Fromsoftware has ever done. If you get pushed into a corner, for example, especially in the lightning phase, it's a living nightmare. It's so bad actually. But overall, if you manage this camera well, if you're just wary of your positioning, you might be in for a very great fight. The Divine Beast attacks are super fun to dodge, the delays feel very natural and good, and I feel like especially the way he switches between those elements so dynamically and changes the moveset is so fun and unique. Just an amazing boss. The boss also just looks insanely cool presentation wise. It's very cool. So yeah, this boss can definitely maybe go into A tier on refights, but first impression wise it was just amazing. Relana the Twin Moon Knight is an insanely flashy and complex boss fight in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. It puts a great emphasis on directional rolling and positioning. Also, you need to keep after effects in phase 2 in mind, and there are a lot of combo extenders that she can either choose to do or not do. Plus, she has very flashy attacks like the Twin Moons that need to be jumped over, or it's going to be very dangerous if you get caught by them. With all of this said, this amazing Pontiff wannabe, actually surpassing Pontiff if you ask me, why is this boss not like the number 1 or 2 spot? I think a big reason for this is the lack of presentation. This boss feels very important in the lore of Elden Ring. She is literally the Blade of Mesmer. Yes, she definitely guards the entry to Skadel Altus, but she still doesn't feel as major as she should. She literally feels like a mini boss you walk in like a minor dungeon. The presentation is on the level of Ghost Loretta in Carrier Manor, which is not worthy for a boss this great. But that's also where my gripes with her end. Her design is absolutely fantastic, and her music is one of the best in Shadow of the Erdtree. It's fantastic. The mechanics, as I already said, are also just top tier, and it's honestly just the lack of presentation that holds her back. Mechanically, Metyr is not on the same level as Relana, actually quite below her in this regard. However, Metyr might possibly have the best build-up in the entire series. The walk through the Abyssal Woods is absolutely amazing with the Winter Lantern stealth section, and it's just such a cool area. And of course, Metyr's Manse, it's an absolute house of horror, and I just love every single inch of this place. It's so cool. Metyr's design and the fact that you can hear him scream before you even get to him, the way you kill him before the fight begins, it's all so good. The cutscene is fantastic, the voice actor is great, it's just a super amazing boss, the design is also top notch. I'm so happy we get more lore on the Frenzied Flame, it's such an interesting aspect of the lore if you ask me. And of course I need to talk about probably my favorite or second favorite soundtrack from Shadow of the Erdtree. The build up and the atmosphere the soundtrack creates is kind of incredible, especially in phase 2, it just goes so hard. Listen to this. This is so good. But mechanically, I would say this boss is also just fucking fun. Like, I don't know. I was a New Game Plus on my first run, and it was just a very fun experience overall. It was hard, and yeah, this boss doesn't have like crazy combo extenders, and maybe not the biggest emphasis on directional dodges and on positioning, but I still think the timings are quite tough, and you can read his animations very clearly and dodge based on that. It's just a very fun fight. I loved Metyr. Metyr was one of my favorite bosses in the entire playthrough, and it really just shows that you don't need to be Malenia to be an absolutely top tier boss. However, of course, there are still a few bosses that I prefer over Metyr. Okay, this is very interesting. The king has finally been surpassed. Metyr is not my favorite dragon boss in the series anymore. This title now goes to Bale, and Bale is just amazing. It's such a well-made boss. It's absolutely cinematic. The build up throughout Jagged Peak is once again just top notch. I feel like Fromsoftware does such a good job of creating a world that perfectly builds up a major character. It's actually kind of nuts how great Bale's build up is. Besides that, the soundtrack sounds like Calamity incarnate. It's just so good. I love listening to it, especially the phase 2. The moves are super fun to dodge. I love the tail swipe turnaround. It just feels so good to dodge. And of course, all all the amazing attacks in phase 2. This Placiduous mini nuke you can jump over. The massive arena-wide fire breath with follow-ups is great. His use of lightning fire, it's all just so fun. This boss is incredible. His lore is also super cool, like that the fact that he sneaked on Placiduous and did the massive damage to him and basically getting fucked up himself. It's such a cool idea. I love Bale. He's so awesome. Of course, there is one very important thing to mention with Bale, and that's the NPC quest with Igon. It's just great. Igon is one of the best Fromsoftware NPCs, if not the best. Usually I don't summon for fights and I quit out at the end because I beat it first try with summoning him basically, but man, not summoning Igon is actually missing out. This guy has such funny voice lines and such a great delivery. Igon is great, and so is Bale. Actually, Bale isn't just great, Bale is amazing. Probably my favorite beast boss and definitely my favorite dragon boss by Fromsoftware. It's just top tier. Promised Consort Radahn, or Radahn Consort of Miquella. Possibly the most controversial boss in the entirety of Elden Ring, if not at least in Shadow of the Erdtree. Of course, there was the leak situation where this boss was leaked earlier and people thought it was garbage and the DLC is going to be terrible and that this boss is just a reskin, blah blah blah. A lot of stupid yapping. And the other issue a lot of people have is that they find it very lame that you just fight Radahn at the end of the DLC, which honestly is fair enough. It's very opinion based, but I think it's very cool lore wise, so I find it very interesting. In general, I find the lore of this fight very interesting and intriguing, and I was not disappointed by this. Well, how is the fight then? Obviously, it being this high means that I probably hold it in very high regard. And yeah, I do. Honestly, this boss could have been the best boss ever made and my number one of all time. However, unfortunately, there is one issue. Well, there are more, but there is one very prevalent one. The minor issues or issues that can be resolved are the bugs. Yeah, they definitely are very annoying and need to be fixed ASAP, but my biggest issue is the double slash attack. This shit is borderline undodgeable, besides with some very strict strategies or some blocking, and I just really fucking hate this move. It's so bad. It's probably my least favorite Fromsoftware move ever. However, the fact that they've nerfed it in a patch shows me that they're hopefully working on it, which makes me hopeful that they can fix it eventually, which is good news. Because if they do, this boss will probably become my favorite boss of all time. Because besides these minor issues, the presentation, the music, everything is 10 out of 10. The lore is super interesting, as I already mentioned. It's the culmination of the Miquella questline in the DLC, and it's super awesome. The cutscene with the music genuinely gave me chills. The first time I saw it, it was just incredible, and the fight is so freaking fun. Phase 1 perfectly prepares you for Phase 2. A lot of fun attacks, besides the double slash, that one sucks, but every other attack is super fun. I love that he used the blood flame because it smokes body, and I love that this boss is so cool. It's basically like fighting Prime Radahn but with a twist. And Phase 2, well, Phase 2 is just amazing. The massive AoE he uses to start the fight is not my favorite attack, but I don't really mind it. But besides that, the beams of light Miquella adds to the fight in Phase 2 make you mind your positioning and the direction of your rolls so much more in the fight, which is super amazing. There are new follow-ups. The attack where he throws meteors at you is now punishable because he lands afterward, unlike in Phase 1. It's just overall a fantastic phase. This boss fight is genuinely just incredible, and if they fix some minor issues, it's probably going to be my favorite of all time. Regardless of the issues though, I loved grinding this boss. He took me well over 100 attempts, and he's definitely the hardest boss Fromsoftware has made, at least for a first playthrough, in my opinion. Just incredible. Well, here we are at the number one spot, and who else could it be than probably the most flawless boss Fromsoftware has ever made. Mesmer the Impaler is my second favorite boss of all time after Millennia, and I genuinely just adore everything about this fight. I had high expectations going in for Mesmer. I mean, he was marketed pretty well and he seemed like a major figure, and he didn't disappoint. He far exceeded the expectations. His design is so amazing. The collector's edition figure is so good. I love it so much. It's probably even better than the Millennia one. Absolute perfection. And yeah, just like the boss, the soundtrack really grew on me. It fits his character perfectly and tells a story, and especially that final 1 minute part at the end is just so good. I love it so much. Well, how is the fight? The fight is just great. Phase 1, he has a lot of combos and a lot of very dangerous attacks, like his Mesmer Foul Dance or the Spear Spam attack, the Mesmer Assault. This attack is of course in phase 2 as well, but it's just a very good attack. Probably like my favorite attack in Elden Ring, and it always ends on a Punisher at the end, which is very interesting. Besides that, phase 1 has this brutal delay that I maybe managed to dodge like in the 10 or 20% of cases. It's super hard and super delayed, and overall just very fun combos that emphasize directional rolling and good positioning. Very good phase. Where this fight ascends to God tier though is phase 2. The way he uses those snakes is just incredible, especially after this super cool cutscene revealing his heretical nature and what followed. It was just so good. I just couldn't wait to see what Mesmer's phase 2 would be like, because I was very sure it would be like some insane stuff, and yeah, I wasn't let down, and I'm so glad I wasn't spoiled for this because of the leak situation. Super glad. The snakes are just a fantastic addition to the fight. I don't know, they are so fun to dodge. It's just a perfect fight. If I had one minor nitpick, but also just really minor, I wouldn't make the snakes take double damage. It's maybe a bit too much. Maybe make it like 1.5 damage or something. But besides that, really no issues from me. Mesmer is absolute boss perfection. Just an incredible boss fight. Thank you, Fromsoftware. It's perfect. Well, what can I say to cap off this ranking? I think Shadow of the Erdtree is probably my new favorite expansion by Fromsoftware, and thereby also my favorite Fromsoftware content. Honestly, I might flip on this later and maybe put Old Hunters as my favorite thing ever again, but right now, first playthrough wise, it was just an incredible experience. The world was immersive and super well designed. The minor dungeons were actually great and I enjoyed all of them. The lore was amazing. The visuals were even better than in the Lands Between, which is insanely high praise, and just all in all, this DLC is the biggest 10 out of 10 I would ever give. It's incredible. Yeah, I definitely have some minor nitpicks, like maybe a bit of a lacking enemy variety, and loot could also be a bit better, but honestly, I loved exploring just for the sake of exploring and finding cool locations. I don't need to always find some insane crazy loot to feel rewarded, but that's just me. I will definitely make a more in-depth review later and talk about all my issues and especially my praise for Shadow of the Erdtree. If you're interested in that and even more Shadow of the Erdtree content, please be sure to like and subscribe and support this video. If you disagree with some picks or agree, please let me know in the comments. I would be very interested to discuss these bosses. I think they're just amazing. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching this video and have a nice day. Bye!